Welcome to Module 3, Lesson 35, where we're going to be taking our skills of multiplying two-digit multiples of 10 by two-digit numbers with the place value chart and are now going to be performing that in the area model. So using that area model that we used last week and now performing the two-digit by two-digit within the area model. So to kind of refresh our memory on what we did yesterday, we're going to complete this problem 25 times 30 in the place value chart. So thinking about how I'm doing this, if you want to kind of work ahead of me and then come back and check your work to make sure you're on the same page as where we were yesterday, that's a great strategy for you to do. If you want to just work along with me, you're absolutely fine to do that as well. So when I think about this problem, I know I really only need to break one of these up because I want to get this into a multiplication problem where I have three numbers that I'm multiplying. So I have three steps that I'm going to complete. So when I think about this, the easiest one for me to break up is going to be that multiple of 10. And remember, a multiple of 10 is a number that if I skip count by tens, I can reach. So I'm thinking 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, and so on. Well, thinking about which one of these numbers, either 25 or 30, well, I know that 30 is my multiple of 10. So I'm going to split my 30 apart. And I know that I want one of those facts to be 10. So I've got to decide what number times 10 gives me 30. Well, I know that 3 times 10 gives me 30. So when I think about my parentheses here, so what equals 30, I'm going to have in my parentheses to start. So 10 times 3 equals 30. And then I'm still multiplying by 25. So my 25 goes in that third blank. But what we recalled, or if you recall from yesterday, we talked about the associative property, which means I can, in a multiplication problem, take my brackets, which tells me what I multiply first, and I can move it around, because no matter what order I do things in, I'm going to get the same answer so long as I complete each of the steps. So in this case, I'm going to rewrite my problem, 25 times 10 times 3. Well, I have to start somewhere. I can't just multiply all three numbers together at once. I have to kind of pick and choose where I'm going to start. So instead of doing 10 times 3 first, I'm going to switch and I'm going to do 25 times 10 first. Because times 10, again, that's not the only way to do it, but it's probably going to be the easiest way for you to do it. So I'm going to solve 25 times 10 and then solve my times 3. Thinking about my place value chart, I've got to decide which of these two numbers am I going to place in there first. Well, I know that to multiply by 10, that tells me whether I need to, or how many times I need to shift my values over. So in this case, I'm going to place 25 in the place value chart. So I've got 2 10s, and I have 5 1s. Okay? And now I've got to, so I've done the step, check. My next step, I'm going to times by 10, multiply by 10. So I'm going to send everything over one place value, because I know I can draw all my dots out, but that's just not very time efficient for me. If I just know that to multiply by 10, I move to the column to the left, then I'm set up perfectly for my next step of my problem I need to do. So I no longer have 2 in the tens, I have 2 in the hundreds. And I no longer have 5 in the ones, I have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the tens. So I'm going to cross those out. Okay, so I've completed step 2. Step 3 is multiply by 3. So in this case, I'm thinking I need to have 3 groups of my hundreds, and I need to have 3 groups of my tens. So I have 1, 2, 3. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 3. Okay, done my third step. My final thing that I need to do is find out my final answer. So if I look here at my chart, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the hundreds. I did 3 times 5, so that's 15 in the tens, and I have 0 in the ones. Well, looking at those three numbers that I have there, I know that I cannot have 15 in the tens. That's too many place value discs. So I'm going to have to bundle and send over. And I know that I need 10 in a bundle, so I'm going to put 10 in a bundle and send them over. And when I send that bundle of 10 tens over, it's going to become 100. So I'm done with that. And now, instead of 15, I have 5 left over. And instead of 6 in the hundreds, I have a 7. So my final answer for 25 times 30 equals 750. Now, just to show you this kind of in that second-hand way where we got rid of the place value chart yesterday, I'm going to complete this problem in kind of that shorthand method without the place value chart, just so you can make that connection of where I'm getting those numbers. So I'm going to complete that down here at the bottom. Okay, so looking at 25 times 30, again, I'm going to set it up very similar to what I did up here at the top, where I'm taking that 30 and I'm splitting it into those two numbers. Oops, let me rewrite here. I'm gonna flip my facts. I'm going to do 10 times 3 just so that it kind of sets me up well for switching my brackets around. Because I know 3 times 10 and 10 times 3 both equal 30. And then I'm going to bring my 25 down. Okay. Now when I bracket, instead of having my brackets here, I'm going to use my associative property and I'm going to move them. And instead I'm going to group my 25 and my 10 together. Well, I know that 25 times 10, 25 times 1 is 25. And times 10 means I'm going to have a 1 0 on the end. So my new problem is 250 times 3. So now I just need to solve that using either my standard algorithm, my partial products, or my area model to solve for my answer. And that'll end up giving me my final answer down here as well. So I'm going to solve standard algorithm here. So I've got 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 2 is 6. Plus 1 is 7. So 250 times 3 is 750. And notice, same answer that I got from my place value chart. Okay, so this one, that method I just showed you down here at the bottom, this one is kind of that shorthand method where we started to kind of creep away from the place value chart. Now I'm going to switch the screen here. We're going to look at the same problem only with the area model, and I think that you're going to probably catch on to this area model pretty quickly because it's set up very similarly to the area model that we did last week with 4x1s, 3x1s, and 2x1s. So in this case, I'm going to think about, well, how should I divide my rectangle up? So I'm always going to start with that rectangle, but how am I going to divide it up? Well, just like we did last time, I'm going to divide it up based on the place values. So I'm going to stretch those numbers apart and think about them in expanded form. So I know that 25 is like having 20 plus 5. And I know that 30, I don't have 1s in the 30, but I'm going to go ahead and place a 0. Even though technically with our expanded form, we never really wrote the zeros. In this case, I want you to get in the habit of doing it because when we start to move away from multiples of 10, and you have a number, let's say like 33, or 36 instead of 30, it's going to be really helpful to already have been in the practice of splitting those into their place values so that you can compute your problem quicker. So again, I've split up my numbers. Now this tells me how many boxes I need on each side. So I can put 25 on the top, I can put it on the bottom, or I'm sorry, on the side. It really doesn't matter so long as you put the other number that you're multiplying by on the opposite side. So in this case, I'm going to, first I'm going to erase here for a second. I'm going to put the 30 on the top because it's a bigger number. So I know that I have two numbers I'm splitting into, so I'm going to put 30 and 0, which tells me I need 2 sections to my rectangle. So 30 plus 0 gives me 30. And I know here on the side that 20 and 5 give me 25. And I'm going to draw my line across. So I have 4 boxes here. I have 25 and 30, 25 times 30, which is my original problem. Now, just like in the other area model, you're going to ask yourself, okay, I'm going to multiply these two sides together to get the inside amount. So I've got to ask myself 20 times 30. Well, I know that 2 times 3 is 6, times 110 is 60, times a second 10 is 100. So I've got actually 600 instead of just 60 or just 6. Then I've got 20 times 0. Well, anything times 0 is going to be 0. Then I have 5 times 30. Well, 5 times 3 is 15. And then I'm going to multiply by that 10. So I've got 150. And 5 times 0 is 0, because anything times 0 is 0. Now, just like in the other problem, you're going to take anything on the inside and you're going to add it up. Now, what you're going to notice with these problems that we're doing today is that you're going to have some zeros in your boxes, which won't normally happen when you have numbers that are not multiples of 10. But go ahead and fill in these boxes here. Don't leave these out because, again, it's good to practice filling in each of those boxes as we move to more difficult problems. So I'm going to add these two up. I'm not even going to bother with the zeros when I do my addition problem, though. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 5 is 5. And 6 plus 1 is 7. So again, we've shown that 25 times 30 equals 750. All right, we're going to switch to a new problem, solving again with the area model. So this time I've got 60 and 34. So again, my first thought is I'm going to be splitting these numbers into their expanded form. So 60 would be like saying 60 plus 0, and 30 would be like saying 30 plus 4. Okay, then you got to place it on your chart. So I'm going to again put the bigger number on top just because it makes sense with the size of the side. So 60 plus 0, and I need 2 columns. Then I'm going to have 30 and 4 here on the side with 2 rows. So just remind myself that those are adding. Okay, now I need to solve for the boxes. So 30 times 60. 30 times 60. This is 30 times 0. This is 4 times 60. And this is 4 times 0. So 3 times 6 is 18. There we go. And then I'm multiplying by 110, which would give me 180, and by a second 10 would give me 1,800. Anything times 0 is 0, which makes that a 0. 4 times 6 is 24. That 4 times 60 is 240. And then finally, I add them up. And again, I'm not going to add those zeros because I know they're not going to change my answer at all. So I'm going to just add the numbers that are left over. 8 plus 2 is 10. Carry the 1. So my answer to 60 times 34 is 2,040. Okay, we're going to look at another problem here. This one you're going to see some lines drawn, and this is just to set you up well for your problem set, because what you're going to notice is that the problem set is kind of walking you through some of your problems, and so I want to set you up so that you have a good kind of concrete example for what this might look like on your problem set. So before we even do the area model, we're going to use that as kind of a check for us right now, but I want us to solve our problem over here on the left-hand side, kind of moving now away from that area model. So we're kind of graduating away from the area model. So when you think about this, our first step that we're going to want to think about is I want to take that 90, because if I multiply things by 0, if I multiply 4 by 0 and I multiply 3 by 0, it's just going to give me a 0, so that's not really going to help me with my answer. So in this case, I want to think about this whole 90 times my 4, and then my whole 90 times my, not just a 3, but a 30. There we go. So let's think about the yellow here. 90 times 4. So 90 times 4. Well, I know 4 times 9 is 36. and I'm multiplying by a 10, so I'm going to have a 0 on the end. And then if I think about up here, I said, it was 90 times not just 3, but 30, because that 3 is in the tens place. So if I think about 90 times 30, well, 9 times 3 is 27, and I'm multiplying by 10, which will give me 270. Multiplying by 100 would give me 2,700. So notice I just took that multiple of 10 and I multiplied it by each of my place values there. Now I've got my my products. Now I want to add them together. So when I've lined up my place values already, so that'll set me up really nicely for completing this quickly. And I should get 3,060. Now I'm going to check that over here on my area model to see if that's correct. I should, if I've done my multiplication correct and I've added correctly, I should get the exact same answer. So I'm going to go ahead and solve that now. So I'm going to say 90 plus 0, and I'm going to say 30 plus 4. Now when you do 2 by 2s, you're always going to have 4 boxes in the center because you've got 2 numbers on the top, 2 numbers on the side. So just kind of something to keep in mind as we continue forward with 2 by 2s. Okay, so I did 30 times 90 was 2,700. 30 times 0 is 0. 4 times 90 is 360, and 4 times 0 is 0. And then if I add those up, notice I'm adding the exact same numbers that I added just a minute ago without the place value chart. And notice I'm getting the exact same answer. So this is kind of where we're headed over here, where we're going to be talking about partial products starting tomorrow. This is basically partial products, what you have right here, which again is very similar to the area model, just you're not drawing that picture of the area model. So I'm going to do one more problem, set up just like that problem that I did. I'm not going to draw the area model this time. And I want you to practice, if you need to, practice kind of circling what numbers you're going to use, like I did in the gold and the red, to help you with that problem. Or even, like I did here, where I wrote the problem that I'm solving out to the side. Use those strategies to help you solve this. It will make it easier to make sure that you are getting the right answers on those blanks, and making sure that your final answer is correct because your parts are correct. Okay, looking at our final problem here, I'm going to set this up right here. Right now it's horizontal. I want to set it up vertically. So I'm going to start with the number that is not a multiple of 10. So that would be 45 in this case on top. And then the multiple of 10 on bottom. That's just, for me, it's going to help me visually with the process that I'm getting ready to solve. But again, I can write 70 times 45. It's not going to matter. It's going to get me the same result. It just might be kind of a little bit more confusing to think about. So I'm going to be working with this one right here. Now, again, I'm going to show those blanks that you're going to see on your problem set. And you'll see kind of a plus sign over here just to help you set yourself up well for doing this on your own here in just a few minutes. So again, I could take the 0 by everything, but that's really not going to be helpful to me. So I'm going to instead take that whole bottom number. 70 times 5 is going to be my first problem. So I'm going to multiply by the ones place first. Well, 70 times 5 times 7 is 35. And I'm multiplying by that extra 10, so it's going to give me that 0 on the end. 70 times 5 is 350. And then can't forget about this 4 in the tens place, so it's not just a 4, it's a 40. And I'm going to take 70, so this one is 70 times 40. Well, 7 times 4 is 28, and I multiply by 10 gives me 280, multiply by 100 gives me 2,800. Okay, final step. Notice my plus sign. Got to use it now. So I'm going to add them up. My place values aren't as straight on this one, so I'm going to draw my lines in between. 5 plus 0 is 5. 3 plus 8 is 11. Carry my 1. And 1 plus 2 is 3. So 70 times 45 equals 3,150. All right, this is where I leave you. You're going to be now working on your problem set. Read the directions. If you get stuck on one, come back to the video and find a problem that's similar to what you're working on and kind of piece together those steps to try to figure it out. All right, good luck.